A few weeks ago, I put out a Google Doc asking you to submit games for me to review. I got some jam games, some prototypes, some demos, and some full commercial games too. And I gotta admit, it was pretty cool. Now let's fulfill my end of the bargain and review your games. These are reviews, not Let's Plays, so expect a lot of feedback, both positive and constructive. My goal is to help your games narrow their focus to what works best and trim out what doesn't. It's a great opportunity to springboard into my thoughts on game design and maybe help you become a better game developer in the future. Of course, I'm just some guy who makes games in his bedroom in his free time, so what do I know? That being said, all of my opinions are to be taken as gospel, so feel free to like or dislike, or better yet, tell me what you think in the comments. In PC Play Tanks, you tank around the levels, destroying other tanks with your bouncy cannonballs. I really love the cute pixel art here. The presentation and audio all feel like they were ripped straight out of classic Nintendo. The bouncing bullets give a good deal of depth to the combat that may not be immediately apparent on the first playthrough. Very neat that you can also play with 2 players. Level 6 is actually a pretty big spike in difficulty that I wasn't able to beat in my limited time with the game. The movement controls can be a little wonky as well, with some strange collisions. I attempted Level Creator and that didn't work at all for me, so sorry I can't show it here. I do like that it was included though. This is a fun 5 to 10 minute experience for anyone who likes cute retro games. In Grandma and the Flowers, you learn the story of your grandmother while blooming flowers in her garden. But be careful, if you bloom too many, you may accidentally crush one. The art style and presentation here are absolutely delightful. The sound design works perfectly to add to the fun and wholesome story as you travel through the garden. I particularly love the transitions, the small sections of dialogue that start you off on each level. The platforming is nice and gameplay is fun, but the story and presentation are really where this game shines. I love that the player can choose their own difficulty by either blooming as many flowers as possible or as few flowers as possible. The puzzles weren't particularly challenging though, and the solutions to some of them could be obscured by ledges and platforms you weren't exactly sure you could reach. There were also moments where the ledge grab didn't seem to work and a few really tight gaps I had to jump through in order to solve puzzles. If these weren't the intended solutions, it's usually best to design the layout in a way so that the player can quickly tell they're not going down the right path, rather than trying in vain for 5 minutes only to do it and still not be sure it was the intended route. This is a beautiful game that really showcases the talents of its developer. This is The Way is a short visual novel game based on The Mandalorian. No, it's not. It has some horror elements where you're locked in a room and talk to a mysterious entity on the other side of the door. Sounds like it's based on a book, which is actually kind of cool. I'd love to read it. I love the atmosphere created here. The visuals really support the story you're telling. I enjoy that there was voice acting and a mysterious song to go along with the vocals. I also like that there was consideration for multiple endings, which is always a lot of fun, though I only managed to find the beautiful ending in my playthrough. The biggest thing I would like to see in an update is subtitles. I actually think the voice acting is quite nice, minus the auto-generated voices near the end. Though I couldn't understand what was being said a lot of the time due to the fact that the lines were just whispered. It also gave off this vibe like you were just reading a novel rather than playing a game, since you just click to progress and you don't really have any dialogue options. I read that there were different endings to the game, but I didn't see any indications of what I might have done differently to get them. Not that you always need to signal everything to the user, but without you saying there were different endings, I might have never even thought to look for them. Overall, I think this is a nice little game, though there are some important features like subtitles I think are missing that should be mandatory in visual novel games, especially when so much of it is whispered.
How can you write so fast?
In Submarine Treasure Hunter, you collect all the treasure in the sea before the time runs out. This is a short one, so I'm going to be short. I think the music was a great choice here and the controls were very smooth. My greatest feedback would be that there's just really not much to do here. Just collect the treasure and hope you make it in time. I'd just love to see some additional features, maybe upgrading your ship to have a compass leading you to the treasure, or some enemies to fight, or well, anything really. I think there's a neat game here, but ultimately just not much to do. Glory's Fools is a quirky and fun story-driven RPG with fun characters, turn-based combat, a narrative inspired by the tales of Ovid, and a branching narrative. There's a ton of cool features I love in here, and it's made all the better knowing that this is somehow an RPG Maker game. You certainly know how to handle yourself in the engine to get the results that look and play like this. I think the dialogue here is a lot of fun, and the different weapons and abilities are great. I think the fights at the beginning though can be especially difficult. I died twice here in the first area because I didn't know how to equip the hatchet I found. It can also be difficult to figure out where to go to save the game and rest. But ultimately I'm excited for what this game will grow to be in the future, and with some more fine tuning and an expanded story, I think this is going to be great. The Tale of the Extended Warranty is a super fun bullet hell where you just have to tell everyone that you don't want the extended warranty. As someone who used to sell cars, this hurts a little bit in my soul, but I totally get it. The satire is perfect, I loved every line of dialogue, the gameplay is suitable for what this is, and the game just never gets too bogged down in the joke where nothing is serious. Not much to improve, a couple small bugs like power-ups appearing where you couldn't get them, but really nothing big. Overall, I think this is a great game, it looks fantastic, and it's definitely worth playing. The Departure is a beautiful walking simulator type game where you uncover a story as you move through the world. It really is a beautiful game with an incredible art style that looks like you're traversing an apocalyptic world on a sea of glass. I would say though that the world is almost too big. Sometimes the red lights wouldn't show me where to go to next, and the thought of backtracking this giant landscape made me not want to keep going. Overall, I might like to see a little bit more to do, but this is definitely worth playing and checking out, if for the visual style alone. Intensive Program is a game. I literally have no idea what's going on in this. I managed to get the first question right, but I shut this down as soon as it had me fill out a survey that needed a real email address for me to participate. Also, the visual style of this game legitimately worried me that I had installed a virus on my computer. I'd recommend maybe doing something about that if you want anyone else to play your game. I'm sorry. Alchemist Mountain is an awesome Zelda-like game. It's got wonderful pixel art with a really cool Zelda-like dungeon with multiple interconnected rooms and puzzles. I was genuinely surprised by the way the puzzles weaved in and out of rooms. It's really something cool to watch. You clearly know what you're doing with level design, and I absolutely love that. Right now though, the swimming and climbing animations are just way too slow. They could definitely use some work. There's also some general bugs and issues where I think if you don't complete the puzzle just right on your first try, you may be soft-locked. Overall, I think the game needs some work, but it is a great idea. It's a fantastic game, and you clearly know what you're doing when it comes to level design, so definitely worth checking out. Boat Warfare pains my soul a little bit because I want to like this game. The music and voice acting are nice, but if I'm being completely honest, the price tag on this of $9.99 is just way too high. The gameplay is buggy, controls don't work well, the AI is really bad, shooting enemies is monotonous, the game is very difficult if you're not taking advantage of the broken AI, and it's also incredibly short. At the moment, I really just can't recommend this one, I'm sorry. Forsun is a really neat escape room type game. I love the vibe of this and the art style is fantastic, but honestly I just can't figure out how to get past the very first puzzle. I found a note behind the fridge and all that, and I've clicked on literally everything and nothing works. This is one that I absolutely want to recommend, but I just can't get far enough to figure this out. I'm sorry, I'm just not smart enough. I do intend to come back to this though down the road once I can get some more time in it. Super Slinger is a cool shoot 'em up type game where you're on one screen and you have to fight off waves of enemies. It's got a neat art style. I like the enemies and I like the slingshot attack. I think it's pretty cool. The music though is on a 5-second loop which gets old really fast. I'd also say the gameplay is pretty repetitive and there's not really anywhere to platform around right now. I'd recommend adding some platforming to the levels and different spawn points other than the left and the right of the map. The boss fights here are super cool. I'd love to see more gameplay like that where it's more dynamic and you're going back and forth. attacking enemies and attacking bosses, and the whole game isn't just point to the right and shoot and then point to the left and shoot. Overall, I do think the game needs a little bit of work before I could get a solid recommendation from me, but I think the boss fights and the art style are both pretty cool. Those were your games. If you'd like me to play your game in this style of video, be sure to submit it in the link below. And like I said, be sure to join the Discord. Have a great weekend, everyone.